That difference between weather and climate is especially important when we talk about winter and how it's changing here in Maine.
Every 10 years, a new set of climate normals is issued, showing rising temperatures in the state.
And as Mallory Brook tells us, despite that temperature increase, winter is still alive and well here in Maine, especially when it comes to snowmobiling and other types of winter recreation.
Earlier this year, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued a new set of climate normals for specific sites across the country. Portland and several other locations across Maine made the list. The term normal is relative to its time in history. During the last ice age, temperatures below freezing would be normal. In meteorological terms, normal refers to an average of the previous 30 years. Every decade, we stop and move the goalposts so it reflects the last 30 years. And that happened in 2020.
You can think of it as if you speak to the average middle-aged person who's lived here their whole life and you ask them, what's the weather like around here? They're roughly referencing the last 30 years of experiences to tell you what the weather's like. And that's how we use the 30-year normal period.
Chris Kimball, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Gray, specializing in climate, explains some differences in our normals for Portland compared to the previous data set.
The overall difference between the old normals and the new normals was that temperatures went up, overall precipitation also went up, and snowfall also went up.
An increase in snowfall took many by surprise, as the recent perception of those living along the coast is that winters just aren't as snowy as decades before.
It just so happens that the 1980s were pretty cool and also a little bit drier and less snowy. So when we lost that out of the record that we're looking at for the normals and then added the 2010s, which were warmer and more snowy, that changed the averages by a little bit.
As Maine relies on winter tourism, I dug a little further with warning coordination meteorologist Donald Dumont about how snowfall in different parts of the state may be changing. While preliminary, there have been some short-term trends noticed about winter precipitation in the state's interior.
There's definitely been a big bump up in not only snowfall but winter precipitation for further inland in Maine. Now it's a short-term trend. It could flip, so we're not going to say anything, but especially the last decade, their average precipitation up in the winter months interior has definitely been increasing. So that equals more snow on the ground in a deeper snowpack.
Which bodes well for Maine's snowmobiling industry, which has experienced a steady increase in non-resident registration since the late 1990s and recorded its second highest non-resident registration number last season. Not surprising, given rising temperatures globally are having more of an impact on areas outside the state. Take note of the decreasing snowfalls reported in Providence, Rhode Island, New York City, and Washington, D.C., where average snowfalls are now less than 30 inches a year and less than 15 inches in D.C.
It's already starting to be seen on maybe the average snowfall, along even Portland. It's definitely being seen, further south in the mid-Atlantic region. But we just have the advantage that 3-4 degrees we can take and still get a lot of snow.
While there's a clear increasing temperature trend for Portland, Rangeley, and Caribou, looking at the snowfall depth, a key variable for our snow sports industry, tells the story that only Maine can tell. While winters are inherently variable, the overall snowfall depth has only dropped slightly in Portland over the last 70 years. Caribou has remained steady, and Rangeley has increased in the last 40 years. A changing climate that highlights Maine's unique position to keep winter steadily entrenched in our way of life.